President Trump said the golden age of America has begun.
The golden age of America begins right now.
Promising lower inflation, booming jobs, and soaring economic growth. But here's the big picture. Are the data backing him up, or is this just another bold claim that doesn't match reality? In today's video, I'm breaking down the latest facts, not opinions, on inflation, jobs, the economy, and the stock market. And trust me, some of these numbers will surprise you. When President Trump was campaigning, he made a bold promise. He said, "We are going to end inflation and make America affordable again." Now, more than a month into his presidency, actually almost 2 months now, let's see if the data matches that promise. According to the latest Consumer Price Index, the CPI report from February 2025, inflation is indeed easing up a bit from 3.0% in January down to 2.8% in February. Core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, also dropped slightly from 3.3% to 3.1%. On the surface, that's good news. But wait. Let's dig a little deeper, especially at daily essentials. Egg prices, for instance, are up nearly 59%. And to put that in perspective, a carton of egg that cost around $3 last year could now cost almost $5. This dramatic rise could be largely attributed to the bird flu outbreak across major egg producing states, causing shortages. But it's not just eggs, is it? Coffee prices have rose by 6% due to lower coffee bean harvest in Brazil, driven up by unusual weather patterns. Meat prices increased nearly 4% over the last few years because farmers are literally dealing with rising feed and transportation costs. So if you zoom out and put things into historical perspective, yes, inflation today at 2.8% is better compared to last year's peak at 6.5%, but still noticeably above the historical average of around 2%. This means while inflation is improving, affordability issues remain front and center for most families. So here's the real question. I want you to think about it. Like, given these price hikes on everyday essentials, does the slight dip in overall inflation feel like a genuine relief, or does everyday life still feel financially stressful? Think about it. Moving on, let's talk about jobs, because that affects almost everyone. The latest employment report from February 2025 just dropped, and honestly, it wasn't really great news. America added 155,000 jobs last month, missing the mark economists set at 170,000. On the surface, that's already a bit concerning, but let's dig a little bit deeper. First, this is some good news. Job growth is still strong in areas like healthcare, finance, and construction. Healthcare alone added tens of thousands of jobs, driven really by increased demand for medical services and an aging population. Construction also rose as new housing development and infrastructure projects ramped up nationwide. But here's the flip side. And it's important to pay attention here. Retail stores, restaurants, hotels, they also significant layoffs. For example, major retail chains like Macy's and Best Buy recently announced hundreds of store closures, partly due to, rising costs and changing consumer spending habits, because restaurants and hotels are also struggling with labor shortage, higher wages, and decreasing spending from consumers who are kind of tightening their budgets. On top of this, the federal government started laying off employees, cutting around 10,000 jobs last month alone. This is part of a broader effort by President Trump to streamline the government's operations, but it's kind of creating uncertainty for thousands of federal workers. And here's another key point. The unemployment rate ticked slightly upwards from 4.0% to 4.1%, and the Federal Reserve has already indicated that this could go higher later in the year. Higher unemployment usually signals more economic caution ahead. So if you're working in healthcare or construction, things might feel stable or even positive. But if your career is in retail, hospitality, or the public sector, well, you might understandably be feeling uncertain right now. Okay, let's zoom out and look at what's actually happening in the US economy. At the end of 2024, the US economy grew at about 2.3%, which is pretty decent, right? But noticeably slower than earlier in the year when it hit nearly 3.5%. So while there is growth, things are clearly slowing down. But here's the kicker. According to the latest forecast from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, the economy might actually shrink by roughly 2.4% in the first quarter of 2025. If that prediction holds true, it will be the worst economic performance since the pandemic lockdown of early 2020, when the economy contracted sharply. Now, why such a sudden downturn? Well, the biggest reason is that consumers, everyday people, are spending less. Prices remain high and there's increased nervousness about job security. This makes people hesitant to spend money on things like vacation, eating out, or buying new cars and homes. And that's critical because consumer spending accounts for almost 70% of America's entire economy. So let's look at a real world example. Retail giants like Walmart and Target recently reported slowing sales growth. Both companies say consumers are shifting towards essentials and pulling back from discretionary items like electronics or house furnishing. Car dealerships are also noticing fewer buyers walking in as higher interest rates are making financing very expensive. President Trump has acknowledged this slowdown, calling it a necessary transition period as the American economy adjusts to its new policies, including reshoring manufacturing and aggressive tariff strategies. However, Trump's own Commerce Secretary is striking a completely different tone, confidently stating that there is absolutely no chance of recession. On one hand, economists and market analysts are divided on this. Some say the current slowdown is temporary, a brief pause as the economy adjusts. Others warn that it's the start of something more significant, a more significant downturn, especially given uncertainty around trades and tariffs. So, who do you trust more? President Trump, who expects some turbulence before improvement, or his Commerce Secretary, who is confidently promising continued economic prosperity? Well, I don't know if I trust any of them. Now, let's dive into the stock market. What exactly is happening in the stock market? Because this is where the real drama unfolds. Since President Trump stepped into office, the stock market has been truly on a roller coaster ride. Initially, investors seemed optimistic, pushing the market significantly up. But recently, things have taken a bit of a volatile turn. So, why are the markets so jittery? The main reason is Trump's aggressive tariff policies. Tariffs, simply put, are taxes imposed on imported goods. President Trump has been using tariffs to encourage domestic manufacturing and to protect American jobs. Sounds good in theory, right? But here's the catch. Tariffs often lead to higher prices for consumers and increased costs for businesses. For example, when Trump previously placed heavy tariffs on steel imports during his first term, manufacturing companies like car makers and appliance manufacturers faced rising costs. Companies like Ford and General Motors publicly warned that tariffs made their raw materials more expensive, squeezing profit and making uncertainty in the market. This uncertainty makes investors cautious, which explains the recent volatility in the stock market. In fact, every time Trump announces or hints at a new tariff, the market reacts almost immediately. Some investors see this volatility as a problem. Others view it as a buying opportunities, betting stocks will recover eventually. But here's something to think about. Experienced investors like Warren Buffett often say uncertainty creates opportunity, but it also brings risk. So, what do you think? Does the stock market volatility make you cautious about investing, or do you see this as a prime opportunity to buy stocks at a discount? So, here's the bottom line. President Trump promised a golden age for America, but as we've seen today, the reality is complicated. Inflation might be cooling off slightly, but the cost of groceries remain high. Job numbers show mixed signals. Economic growth forecasts are shaky, and stock markets are experiencing significant ups and downs. Ultimately, these are the facts. Whether this is the beginning of a true golden age or simply a bumpy economic road depends on your perspective. So, here is my final question to you. Do you think America's economy is on the right track under President Trump, or are there tough times ahead? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I break down money, financial market, and how to protect your wealth every Wednesdays and Sundays so you can stay ahead no matter what the economy throws your way. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.